Welcome to the New Economy, What's Next? My guest today is a very special guest, is my mother, Benita Ramming, and we're going to talk about intrapreneurship as well as managing through a crisis. So stay tuned.
Now, I don't know you, I can't even see you, but here's what I know about you, that you have something special. You have greatness within you. I can say that to you based upon my own experience. If anybody told me just getting started, so I don't know what you do. You might be selling a product, a service. You might have some skill or knowledge that people need right now. I don't know what you do, but here's what I know. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great.
Nothing is free. Nothing is easy. You have to think different. You have to do different.
Do not try to draw a straight line. Find the rocket ship that matters to you. And you know what really matters here is if you try to plan out your career, anyone who thinks you know exactly what you're going to do for the next 30 years, here's what I promise, or 40 years, it's going to be boring and you're going to miss all the good stuff because all the good stuff hasn't been invented yet.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
We are talking, we're going to talk today a little bit about intrapreneurship and what that means. Why don't you define that for the guests?
Okay. Well, entrepreneurship is actually the within an organization being an entrepreneur. So you have to be creative, always developing your business, recreating your business to be relevant for today as well as effective and something that customers will want to attend your business and be your customers.
Okay, and this is hard during normal a normal and business environment.
Right.
How hard is that to do during this whole COVID-19?
Right. Well, that has posed a lot of challenges for business. Currently, I manage a chain of medical clinics. So we have had to go through shortening our hours, restricting the services we could provide. Plus, you have added expenses of, the hand sanitizer at the door, the checking everybody's temperature who comes in, the PPE that the staff have to wear. So there's been challenges. So you have to still be available for your customers and also communicate with them. So Facebook, social media, that comes into play now. Not so much the traditional advertising, but you have to be creative in how you reach out to your customers.
So why don't you, obviously I know you, but people at home don't realize that you have an MBA.
Yes.
And it's in...
My MBA from Kellogg is in organization behavior and accounting.
So, and organizational behavior is really, really important.
Right.
Especially for leading a large organization.
Right.
Because you're managing all of these different relationships
Yes.
and making sure that people... why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because you're not actually a medical practitioner.
Correct. I'm the business person. So, organization behavior is really basically taking the different areas of a business and having them work together, right? So communication is very important. Through this pandemic, WhatsApp is a fantastic tool because when our hours have changed, then we of course have to change the time that staff comes to work. Shifts change. So, my medical director and I would discuss, how we are going to implement the change, and then we communicate that out to the various departments, mostly through WhatsApp, because to call all the departments, by phone, it just drags out, the implementation of the change. So we've been using the tools that are available so that we can quickly implement the change.
Yeah, and it's and also why don't you talk a little bit about how it's important for the lines of communication not only to be top down but also bottom up.
Right, right. Well, like I said, I'm not medical, so I'm not on the front line dealing with patients directly. I'm up in the office. So I rely heavily on the people who are on the front line to communicate back to me what's the feeling of the patients, if there's something that's a concern that we can then change either the way we do business or just communicate why the change has taken place. That's big. That's very important as well. I rely on my frontline staff to communicate to me so that we can make changes for the organization as a whole.
Yeah, and it's different. Most people think that the boss is the boss, and he makes the strategic decisions, and then maybe there's a manager who tells the line staff what to do.
Yeah.
But in a very rapidly changing environment, that's not feasible, or is certainly not efficient.
Right, right. I mean, there's still where line staff communicates to their manager, and then the manager communicates to me, and then when a decision for the organization is made, that's how it goes back down, to the manager and then to the line staff. But my door is always open, so I have no problem with anyone coming to me with a suggestion of how to improve, or this is what other people are saying. Have you considered this? And I mean, I have no issue with that at all.
Okay. Okay. Pivoting back to intrapreneurship, and a lot of people think that the job is just a job, whereas us on the business management executive side are looking for people that kind of take on more of a leadership role in companies and things like that. Why don't you talk about kind of the ethos that is required for you to be a high-performing, high-achieving employee?
Okay. Well, I'm a big believer in efficiencies and changing for the better, right? Not just change for change's sake. So I rely heavily on, like I said, the line staff experience. Your business has to evolve with what's going on in the world. So, for example, the pandemic is a prime example of how you evolve yourself to address the concerns of your customers. So everything feeds into it together. So yes, you might have an idea of how to improve your business or what the patient or customer is looking for at this moment. You also have to then see how it's going to affect the whole organization, because you can't necessarily make a change that's just for one specific area, because it's going to affect everything. Yeah. Right, so you have to keep the big picture at the same time, addressing the little concerns or the individual concerns that are going on. So it's a very dynamic process. You can't necessarily dictate that this is the only way. There's always the caveat in all of our communications right now that things can change depending on what say the emergency orders are or what's going on. So there's always that to keep in mind.
Okay, and yeah, it's like I learn a lot just every time I talk to your mom, and it's just interesting how like you were saying, you have to keep that holistic kind of approach for the whole company,
right?
No matter where your position is, because you can't lose sight of the mission,
right?
And it's a lot of people, they get kind of stuck in their I doing my work kind of mode without taking that into their work is part of the mission of the organization.
Right.
I mean, it's I say this to say for the people at home is that the higher up the chain in an organization, the more strategic and the less hands-on you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people like to micromanage, but that's really not how modern business is done.
Sure.
We'll be right back after a short message from our sponsor. At Arawak X, we understand that for businesses to grow, they need capital to hire staff, buy equipment, and fuel innovative ideas. We support this process by using technology, years of business acumen, and a world-class team to get business the investment they need to get to the next level. If you are a business owner and need between $100,000 and $3 million, contact us today. We will schedule a meeting over the phone or video chat. Get on the path to your dreams. Arawak X. Dream bigger.
All right. Hi, my name is Peter Bridgewater. I'm President and CEO of Open Systems Technologies International. We are a enterprise content management solution provider here in the Bahamas for the past 20 years, and we've worked with a number of government and private institutions to store and capture their information electronically. Well, digital transformation is key to the success of your business, or any business, and we have a trained team with over almost 40 years of experience in terms of implementing these solutions, and we have a good vendor relationship that will support any implementation here in the Bahamas. So the next steps in your business should be to implement a enterprise content management solution that will enable you to function like in this pandemic, also as a business continuity solution so that you can work in the event of a disaster. And so you can feel free to call us for a free consultation. Our numbers are 242-328-6736, and you can also check us out on the web at www.opensystems-bs.com.
The new economy. What's next? Now Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6:30 p.m. before the news.
Sometimes end up being hands-on. So, a small example, I might be coming into the clinic and, someone has dropped tissue right at the door. Well, that sends an image to our patients, oh, this is a dirty place or whatever. So I have no issue, picking it up and throwing it in the garbage to make sure that our image is maintained. So you have to be willing to do things like that. It's not always feasible for me to, or even for, say, the housekeeper to come and leave what they're doing to come and address a tissue at the door. It's just very simple for me to just pick it up and, keep our image.
Okay, so it's when it relates to the quality of the product,
yes,
is when you're talking about being more hands-on.
Right.
Why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk about why it's important to look for efficiencies in the company from wherever you are and look for ways to improve it.
Sure. Well, if you're not looking for efficiencies, let me start with that. So say there's a process and it takes 12 steps. Well, those 12 steps take time. So if you can do it, rework that process so that it takes 10 steps, 8 steps, then of course it speeds up the process, and then you're able to then move on to something else, and so your productivity of course goes up because of that. But also you learn in analyzing that process that well, actually, why is this step? You start questioning, why is this step actually in this process? Is it adding value, to the entire process, or is it just, a step? Somebody added this, years ago, and just because everybody did it for all these years, we're not changing it. Well, I always question the why, and then you also look at the tools that are available on the market. Maybe there's a tool that will make that process work better. So, if it's a software or if it's, an actual physical tool, maybe now we look at, okay, there's the cost of the tool. If we get that tool and we use it, and everybody understands why it's been implemented, we can speed up those processes.
Yeah, and ultimately, I guess we'll pull all of that organizational behavior into the accounting part. Ultimately, that adds to the top line of the organization, meaning that the company makes more money, and then in these times, company makes more money means everybody stays employed.
Right,
and
yeah, exactly. And it could add to the bottom line as well, of course, because you might have made this investment and then you pay for it initially, and then over time it's being used, and so that adds to your bottom line as well, because your revenue is going to be greater than the expense that went out the door for it. So, plus one of the other things too is when you look at a process that's been in place for a long time and you move to make a change, then you're also educating the people who are using it. They start asking, well, why am I doing this? Actually, I could be doing this a little better if I just, tweaked it here and whatever. So that kind of back and forth feedback is actually really good.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you're basically turning the whole organization into thinking about how to make the process better, which is the dream of all business owners, because you can't solve every problem.
Sure, yeah.
So it's cool, very cool. It's not, process can be I don't want to say boring, but for many people it can be boring. But it's important to understand that it materially affects the way we work.
Right. Actually, I'll give you a little story, because when I was an analyst and I was still in MBA school, my boss, I had just joined an organization which was a steel container company. And my boss, there were two of us, he sent us into the plant to actually map out the process of the pails being made. So we had to, look at, the sheets of steel coming in, the forming of it, and, so on down the line to the actual finished product. And there was one piece where a man was taking pails off of the conveyor belt and then later on putting them back on the conveyor belt. I said, well, that's very strange. Why would you have a person there who does that day by day? The reason was the conveyor belt costs a certain amount of money. The plant is only a certain size. So to extend the conveyor belt to accommodate the time between one machine and the next was too expensive. It was better to still have that person taking the pails off and then putting them back on.
Wow. So it's you can only make that decision.
If you see the whole thing, and take into account all the different pieces.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. It's I wanted to start this season off with you, because the procedures are how we increase our productivity. It's people are the same, you in many ways, but it's only through going through processes and procedures that you increase your efficiency and using tools. And and then you can get those can be very simple processes, or they can be very complicated ones. And it's I think this is a good framework for starting the conversation about the new economy. Yeah. So my last 2 cents on that is the new economy. You're going to need to procedure. That's how we as founders and business owners allow other people, how you duplicate yourself. You have to take what's in here and put it down in a process, and then you can hire the right staff. They can work it, and then you can hire professionals to improve that process over time.
Well, because I'm not going to be around forever and ever and ever, so I also have to leave it for the next person who's coming in.
What are some of the advantages of having this kind of mindset in terms of your relationship to your bosses as well as your employees, or the people that work for you, people that you manage?
Well, I guess I go by example, right? So
we'll be right back after a short message from our sponsor. Think direct ownership of the Bahamian pie isn't for you? Think again. At Arawak we believe in the ingenuity of the Bahamian people. These times are uncertain and unprecedented, but we know that in every crisis there is an opportunity to add value to people's lives. To this, we understand that new businesses will be formed and old ideas whose time has finally come will be realized. We see this in industries long been ignored by traditional financial services and by society at large, particularly in our digital businesses, agribusiness, fishing, manufacturing, and even new touristic ventures. Due to our present circumstances, these businesses have finally been brought to the forefront. Arawak seeks to give your ideas and your participation a means of making your financial dreams a reality. We give businesses and investors tools needed to finance them. Business is a complicated thing, with many moving and changing parts that often require multidisciplinary teams to turn ideas into reality. While no one can truly say which businesses will make it and thrive and which will not, there are certain formulaic traits that successful businesses have. This is why we here at Arawak place such a high emphasis on corporate governance and the structure it brings to give companies the best chance at growth and expansion. Arawak operates a regulated and financially inclusive platform that combines modern technology with best practices and a world-class team to bring together businesses and investors at every level, allowing wider participation in ownership of companies. So here's how it works. Investors, both foreign and local, individual and institutional, can view offerings and directly invest into these companies. We have spent several years and invested greatly in our staff and technology processes. We are doing this by greatly expanding the ease of investment. In other words, people will be able to participate in promising new ventures for as little as $50. The ethos of our institution is that of financial inclusion. And in this spirit, we ourselves will be a publicly traded company. In these next few months, as we roll out our platform, know that we view ourselves as an integral part of a wider societal change, the change that brings ownership, opportunity to everyone. We are pleased to work with our partners in industry, government, civil society, and the people in making the Bahamas the best little nation on this planet. As a first step, we have put together a free online course, the Intelligent Bahamian Investor Masterclass, that will give you some of the basics to investing. This can be found at invest242.com. Arawak Dream Bigger. The new economy, what's next? Now Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6:30 p.m. before the news. What are the some of the advantages of having this kind of mindset in terms of your relationship to your bosses as well as your employees, or the people that work for you, people that you manage?
Well, I guess I go by example, right? So for the people who work for me, they see that I implement what I'm saying to do. So they also then can easily adapt to it or take on the project as well. As far as to my superiors, of course I have to, when I want to implement a change, I have to basically give to them my reasoning why the change is necessary, but also then show along the way how the change is being implemented and how it is benefiting the company. Yeah, you have to work both the communication upward as well as downward.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any, for people in their organizations right now at home that can see improvements, how's the best way of communicating that, especially if they have to convince superiors to abandon a process or something?
Sure. Well, you got to do your research, right? If you're putting in place a new software, of course you have to see who's offering the software, what are the features of each one. You have to do your research so that when you present it to your superiors, they can, see examples, they can see why it is different, say, from your last software. Cost, of course, that's always a big factor. So how are you going to, cover the cost with the new implementation? What other benefits does it have? So for example, our software that we have in the clinic, we looked at several different ones when we were looking at changing ours. But the major thing with our new software that we have is that we can run queries on it. So, we could see how many people came in last year versus this year. We could run those by month even. So, things that our last software didn't provide us with, we could run based on diagnosis. We could run, based on a service that was provided. So we could see a lot of different things. So that was the selling point there. Then, of course, there was the implementation of it within the clinic. And we had to learn it, we had to communicate, we had to train, we had to be available for any, problems that might arise, and then, quickly make the changes or teach people, where they went wrong. And now, everyone is very comfortable with it. Yes, acclimated, yes.
Yeah, it's a process. It's
yes.
It's not you just click your fingers and all of a sudden there's new procedures take hold. You have to, I won't say be gentle, but...
You do, because actually, you could have, because there was a bunch of training videos available, so you could have just said, oh, watch the video, learn on your own or whatever, but people need the hands-on. They also need someone to be there just in case there were questions, and people are looking for best ways of working with the tools that they use on a daily basis. So if you could teach them how to, do something that is going to make their job better,
Sure.
It's easier to implement.
Yeah, who wants to do 10 steps when you can do 5?
That's right.
Well, very cool. Do you have any last words for any people that are entrepreneurs in their organizations?
Sure. Just basically be open to the communication. You have to... The communication is the key, really. So feedback from staff, feedback back to staff, and that continuous movement really would just lead to improvements.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Cool.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, But it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life.